The word electric dominates automotive headlines in 2023. Rolls-Royce, Lotus, even Lamborghini are all touting their new or upcoming electrified models. The 2023 Lexus RCF Track Edition, however, probably doesn't even know what that word means. And that's because under the hood of the Lexus RCF Track Edition, you're going to find a 5-liter naturally aspirated V8 that makes 472 horsepower and 395 pound-feet of torque. All of which goes out through the rear wheels on Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires via an 8-speed automatic transmission. Sadly, there is no manual. But you also get all of that on a regular non-Track Edition Lexus RCF. So what's special about this Track Edition? Mainly carbon fiber. The Lexus RCF Track Edition features a carbon fiber front splitter, hood, roof, side skirts, rear diffuser, and wing. This thing is the largest visual giveaway that you're driving a Track Edition, and I think it looks pretty good. Other changes over the regular RCF are these forged lightweight 19-inch rims, carbon ceramic brakes, which really do help stop the car, and Alcantara on the steering wheel, gauge cluster surround, and the gear selector. Now, all of those lightweight elements supposedly shave about 66 pounds and 0.2 seconds off of the car's 0 to 60 time. That would all be great if it weren't for the fact that this car has a sticker price of $105,000. That's $37,000 more than the $68,000 base RCF starting price. That seems like a lot of money for 0.2 seconds faster. All of that aside, this car does look way more aggressive than a regular RCF, mostly thanks to this rear wing. I absolutely love how this car looks, and it gets a lot of attention. Now, when you're not shaving 0.2 seconds off of your 0 to 60 time or attracting everyone's attention, you may have to actually use this vehicle to transport things and people. I, at 6'2", was able to drive with a 5'10" individual in the back seat. Neither of us were very comfortable, but let's see if I, 6'2", can actually fit behind my ideal driving position. I would not want to spend any long journey back here, but I could probably spend 15 to 20 minutes in the back, 6'2", sitting behind my 6'2" self. It's nice that there's no middle seat because then you can for sure kind of lean in sideways. And I've definitely been in tighter back seats. You could definitely use this for children or adults in a pinch. All right, driving the Lexus RCF Track Edition. The best thing about this car is this. Put your foot down. Oh, the sound of that 5-liter naturally aspirated V8 is just spectacular. You know, I've driven this engine in the Lexus LC500, their more grand touring car, as well as the Lexus IS500 F Sport Performance, and I think it sounds the best for sure in the LC. In the RC and in the IS, it sounds a little tinnier, especially on the outside. But in here, you do feel the roar and hear the roar a little more than you do on the outside. So as a driver, it's amazing. But the LC definitely is a little richer of a sound when you are revving it out and when you're driving. So it's not as spectacular as that car. That car is truly symphonic, but it still sounds amazing, and you don't get this sound like in any other car on the market. Now, although the LC sounds better, the RC is noticeably quicker than that vehicle. It is lighter. They make about the same horsepower, if not identical horsepower figures, but the RC is lighter, especially this Track Edition, which shaves about 66 pounds off of a regular RCF. And so it is quicker, and you do notice that, especially like once you pass about 2,800 RPM, that's really when this engine kind of becomes alive and will really just give you relentless thrust until it upshifts. It's a pretty impressive engine. You do have to wait for it to kind of build up power into the upper RPMs, but then once you're there, you really do get the power until it upshifts, and it just keeps on pushing. It's funny driving a naturally aspirated engine after driving a lot of electric cars. I was driving a lot of electric cars this summer, and those give you power right away, and then they kind of die off. This is exactly the opposite. It takes a second to get the power, but then it just keeps delivering the power, and you keep accelerating at the same rate until it upshifts. And it's a different feeling, a unique feeling, but it's definitely really fun. Now, I haven't driven a regular RCF, but this RCF Track Edition, I do really appreciate the Alcantara finishes you get in this interior. It definitely makes the car feel a little more aggressive and a little more sporty, especially on the steering wheel. It's nice to grip the Alcantara and really just feel like you are in a sports car, which this car is, or at least is trying to be. You also get it on the gear selector and on the dash, and it just kind of adds to the vibe. Elsewhere, this interior is definitely starting to show its age. You know, the RCF and the RC in general came out in 2015 for the 2015 model year, I believe, so in 2014 actually, and they haven't done a complete redesign since. They did a facelift when the RCF Track Edition first came out, I believe in 2020, or in 2019 for the 2020 model year, but you still have a pretty old Lexus interior in here. You have a partially digital instrument cluster, which is nice. You get your speed read out and it changes its design when you cycle through the different modes, which is appreciated. And you have an analog clock like all Lexuses used to have. Physical buttons for your climate control, which is appreciated, better than it being in a touchscreen, but it's the old Lexus climate control system, not the new one you get in the new RX or NX. You have a CD player, which is pretty funny. Oh yeah. That is where this car shines, is accelerating, and just hearing that engine, it really does sound good in here, even if it's not quite as good as the LC. That is what you're buying this car for, is the engine. Elsewhere in the interior, you do now have a touchscreen, which is really appreciated. You don't have to use this trackpad, which still exists, but you can just kind of ignore it. It is a touchscreen. It has full screen wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, which looks really good up there. So that does bring this car into the more modern age, but you know, you don't have a surround view camera. When you put it into reverse, the backup camera is pretty low quality. And it is just, it feels old in here. The steering wheel design is also pretty old, also pretty plasticky on the like steering wheel cover itself. So the RCF Track Edition is an old vehicle, but that's part of the reason you're buying it, because since it is an old vehicle, it still has a 5-liter naturally aspirated V8. Well, this RCF Track Edition does have a great engine, and it's really fun to accelerate and hear that power, and it is quick. You know, it's 3,700 pounds, so it's still a pretty heavy car, even with the weight reduction. And this engine only making 395 pound-feet of torque, that's not a huge amount of torque nowadays, but it still does have a lot of thrust, and it's fun to hear this engine come alive. But in other elements, you do still feel the weight. Like when you are cornering this car, the steering is pretty light, and you don't feel a lot through the steering. It's not the most athletic steering in the world. It doesn't give a lot of feedback. I'm in normal right now, but let's go over to Sport S Plus. And I mean, it's quick, but it's pretty dead on center. You're not getting a lot of feedback. It's easy to cruise in. It's easy for everyday driving, but you know, this is supposed to be a super aggressive track edition car, and it just doesn't feel like that. Something like the Toyota Supra is definitely more nimble, more athletic, and more ready to take on corners aggressively. This car seems a little more like a muscle car, wanting to go in a straight line. And I mean, the 5-liter V8 rear-wheel drive kind of lends itself to that as well. But it doesn't really feel like a track edition. The one upgrade that a track edition has that a regular RCF doesn't have, which is really nice, are the carbon ceramic brakes. This thing stops really fast. I'm gonna make sure there's no one coming up right behind me, and I'm going to slam on the brakes. Wow. Yeah, for its weight, 3,700 pounds, this thing stops really fast. So that is really nice that they added these carbon ceramic brakes. So if you are on a track, those will definitely help increase lap times. But overall, it still doesn't feel like a very sporty chassis. And I think that's the real detriment of the RCF Track Edition. They added these lightweight elements to help, you know, make it more athletic. They added the carbon ceramic brakes, and it has this amazing engine, which is so fun to accelerate and all of that. But the car just lacks that athletic feel when you are throwing it around a corner. It doesn't feel nimble. It doesn't feel light. It leans. It just isn't the most athletic car. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't buy this car. If you're looking for the ultimate naturally aspirated V8 Japanese sports car, this is definitely it. That JDM like inspiration, it just looks so cool, and it definitely gets looks on the roads. and people will stop you and ask you what this is, and like anyone can tell that this is a cool car. And this engine is actually more impressive than I initially anticipated. I drove this car about 200 miles the first day I picked it up from the airport to my house, and I averaged 27.5 miles per gallon, which for a big naturally aspirated V8 is super impressive. That's the same MPG I got in the new Cadillac XT4, which has like a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. So you can cruise this, you could take it on a road trip. It's actually fairly comfortable in here. These seats are very well bolstered, so you're not gonna have a whole lot of room to stretch out, but you can have a great time. But where this car really shines is pulling around a corner and giving it some gas. Yeah. Very impressive, very impressive. The transmission isn't the most aggressive. It's an 8-speed automatic transmission. When I put my foot down, it takes a second, then it downshifts, and the upshifts are a little jarring. They're not seamless and they're not the fastest. It definitely takes a second to make that shift, and you'll feel it a little, you'll rock a little, but that's okay. You're just going to be enjoying the sound of this engine. The nice thing about a car like this is you don't just feel the power of the engine in the acceleration. You feel it in the vibrations in the seat and in the steering wheel. You feel it in the sound that this engine emits. It's just an aura of power in everything about this car, and it is pretty quick too. I do really like this car. It is stellar. I just think a regular RCF offers pretty much the same performance for a lot less money. To me, it seems like Lexus already offered an amazing car with the RCF, that they didn't really need to make this RCF Track Edition. Although perhaps when people see that there is such a car as the RCF Track Edition, even if they don't buy the Track Edition, it makes the regular RC and the regular RCF all the more desirable. And in that way, this car does make sense. So that's the Lexus RCF Track Edition. It looks and sounds stunning and has relentless acceleration. But 8 years is a long time in the automotive industry, and this RC platform is starting to show its age. And $37,000 seems like too big of a price increase for the minimal performance improvements that you get. But if you are looking for a naturally aspirated V8 sports car and you're looking to send off this type of car in style, the Lexus RCF Track Edition will not disappoint. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.